Well, retired Lieutenant Colonel Oakland McCullough. Hello, sir. Welcome. It's an absolute honor and a pleasure to have you here. Before we've actually come on to the podcast today, we've already been talking in the lead up to it, and I'm super excited, as I know Preet is, to engage with you and have a conversation, a kind conversation around the future of leadership and why kindness is paramount and imperative for successful collaboration and engagement at all levels of leadership. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
It's very, very beautiful. I'm so thrilled to be connecting to you and learn from you. Please.
Yeah, well, I've really been looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Please share with us a little bit about your background and who you are today and how do you happen to be on this journey?
Yeah, so I did 23 years on active duty in the United States Army as an officer. I did my first 5 years, I was an infantry officer. My last 18 years, I was an armored cavalry officer. So I got to ride around on M1 tanks. Did a lot of teaching in that time. And then retired in 2009, and I ran a food bank. I was the associate director of a food bank. So I ran the day-to-day operations of a food bank, a large food bank, had 52 counties along the whole Gulf Coast of the United States. So between Mississippi, Alabama, and the Panhandle of Florida. And I did that for about 18 months. And then for the last 12 years, I've been doing recruiting for the Army ROTC program here, where I was helping to produce the next generation of leaders for the Army and the nation. And over those last 15 years, I've had my hand in producing over 550 lieutenants for the United States Army. And then in February, I wrote my book, Your Leadership Legacy, Becoming the Leader You Were Meant to Be. And since then, I've been out on the speaking engagement, just talking about leadership and how to be successful. And that's really my passion at this point in my life, to get my message out to as many people as I can.
Wow. What is your message of legacy?
Yeah, so legacy is, in my opinion, has two parts.
Mm-hmm.
A very small part of that is what you actually do. Because if you tie your legacy to that, when the next CEO or president of a company or the boss comes in and you leave and they change things, there goes your legacy. Mm-hmm. So it's what you do does count, because in the real world, results do matter. But the majority of your legacy is that next generation of leaders that you help produce, who will then produce the next generation of leaders and the next generation of leaders. So to me, it's all about the mentoring and helping to produce, coach, teach, train, develop, mentor the next generation of leaders.
And I know we were discussing on this, that is the mindset or mind unset shift from what I did to what we did, correct? In terms of
That's right. That's right. We all have an ego. Anybody who tells you they don't have an ego is lying to you. We all have an ego, and that's okay. Yeah. People's ego is what drives them to be successful. And we want people to have an ego. But as a leader, you must, if you want to be a good leader, you must be able to put that ego aside at times, mm-hmm. to use the talent, skills, and knowledge of the people that you have the privilege to lead. Because believe me, as the leader, you do not have all the answers. You may think you do, but you don't. And you certainly don't have all the skills, knowledge, and abilities. Use those abilities and skills and knowledge of the people that you have the privilege to lead, and your organization will be much, much better.
Mm. So what gets in the way of the leader and this ego? Why ego takes better off them? Because
I think people, they tie success to themselves. And they think the only way this organization is going to be successful is if I make it successful. And that is the exact opposite. That is not true. No organization is successful entirely because of what the leader did. It's successful because of what the people did. When I tell people, one of the major things that a leader needs to do is come up with the vision and the plan and build the culture of that organization. And, you as the leader need to figure out where you want your organization to be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now, however far you want to go. but you're not the one that's going to get it there. It's the people that work for you that you have a privilege to lead. They're the ones that are going to get you from where you are today to where you want to be in that vision. And I always, those three things, vision, plan, and culture, are interconnected. And I always say it's like this. Your vision is where you want to be at some point. The plan is how you're going to get there. And the culture of your organization is who you are along that journey from today till the end of that vision.
Beautiful. And do you think kindness could be that glue where leaders can start to have between their people?
I think you have to be, kindness certainly plays a part. I talk about servant leadership, which I think ties right in. I mean, you could use kindness just about like servant leadership, I guess, because leadership is about people. Everything in this world is about people, but certainly leadership is about people. And to get people to follow you as a leader, they have to trust you, number one, and nobody's going to trust you if you're not kind and taking care of them. And number two is that I think that's what we're on this earth to do, is to take care of other people. It's not about you. I think part of the problem is these things right here. I mean, we named them iPhone. I'm sorry, it's not about you. It's about us, the group, the organization. One of my favorite quotes, and I use it all the time, is that by Vince Lombardi, who was a famous American football coach here in the United States. And he always used to say that a team is not a group of people who play together. A team is a group of people who trust each other. And if you're not taking care of people, if you don't get to know people and take care of them, they're not going to trust you. And your team will never be as good. Your organization will never be as good as it could have been.
I remember reading up on one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time as well, Coach Wooden. He had 15 development sectors, right, for the triangle of evolution itself. So as you were talking about Vince, I know of Vince to the degree that I do. So I think there's lots to be learned from some of the greatest coaches in sports of our time.
Yes. John Wooden is one of my favorites, one of the things I talk about is a professional development program, not just for yourself, but for the people in your organization. And a huge part of that, in my opinion, is reading great leaders' autobiographies, I believe. And people ask me, so what's your favorite leadership book? And they're absolutely amazed when I tell them, because it has nothing to do with the military. My favorite leadership book of all times is On Leadership by John Wooden.
I downloaded it. I've had once through, I think it was early in the year, so I need to go revisit that and share that with you, actually. It's so good.
Yeah.
I'm curious. So you had this military background, and then now you're into this path of leadership and sharing your wisdom with others, what you learn in life. I wonder what your vision of a kinder world is. There's so many challenges in the world. There's wars happening. And as business people, how could we contribute to make this world a kinder place?
Yeah, I think for my opinion, it isn't about the bottom line. Now, I got it. If you run a business, you got to make money. But if you do this right, you're going to make money. If you take care of people, if you get to know the people in your organization. One of the things I tell all these young men and women that I've had the privilege of helping to create as leaders, the day they become an officer, I always walk up to them, every one of them, and I say, your goal every day should be to make a positive difference in one person's life every day. As a leader, you're going to make a difference in somebody's life every day. Why not make a conscious decision to make a positive difference in one person's life? Not 10. If you can do more than one, good for you. But one, that's doable. There's nobody in this world who can't go out and make a positive difference in one person's life. And if you actually do that, imagine how much better your family will be, your neighborhood, your community, your city. Imagine how much better this world would be if everybody went out and made one positive difference in somebody's life.
And their own personal well-being as well. There's so much science to it that when we are kind to each other, we're actually being kind to ourselves.
Sure. I mean, who doesn't feel better when you are kind to somebody else? I mean, I don't know of anybody, maybe the Grinch. I mean, we're in Christmas season, so maybe the Grinch but even in the end, he realized that's what it was about.
Yeah.
So I think, it certainly does our own self good when we are kind to somebody else and do something for somebody else, not be selfish, be selfless. Selflessness is something that I think we're losing in certainly in this country and probably the world, in that people are always asking, well, what's in it for me? I jump on a lot of Zoom calls and team calls, and I've been on, like I told you, about 148 podcasts. But when I get on Zoom calls sometimes, because I connect with people on LinkedIn and I love to connect with people on calls, sometimes the first question somebody asks me is, what can I do for you? Or what do you want from me? And I said, nothing. I'm trying to connect, trying to learn about you. You can learn about me. If somewhere down the road you can help me or I can help you, good for us. But just let's try to learn from each other where we can make a difference.
And do you think that's perhaps from a societal perspective where people, rather than operating from a sort of love perspective, they're actually operating from fear? Because that to me sounds quite sort of like that perception of, oh, you're only reaching out because of, so there's a fear element to their engagement. So perhaps because of past experiences, and there's a lack of trust, and they're skeptical when they first meet somebody. And it must be born, I would imagine, of previous experiences that they've held on to and go, I can't trust anybody until they show me I can trust them, right?
Yeah. Well, I think you're probably right. I think it probably is from a previous experience. I go, and sometimes to my detriment, I guess, but I'm under the philosophy, I trust you until you show me that I can't. And I kind of got that out of some really good mentors that I had in my life, starting in high school and going all the way through the Army, and then after the Army as well. But some of the best mentors, the best leaders I ever had were servant leaders who trusted you, who built that trust and then trusted you. Because when we talk about trust, I believe trust is 360 degrees. It isn't just the person you're leading trusting you and you trusting them, although that's important. If that one isn't there, not much else matters. But it's also everybody in your organization that has to trust each other, that they're going to do the right thing, they're going to do their job, they're going to be part of the organization and try to make the organization better beyond themselves. And then if you're talking about the business world, now you're talking about your organization having trust outside your organization, because people aren't going to do business with you if they don't trust you. They're going to go with somebody that they do. So that trust is a lot more than just one-on-one person. It has to be everything, that 360 degrees, if you really want it to make a difference in your organization.
Right. So beautiful. I understand and appreciate that we're talking about kindness in the business world. Would you mind sharing a kind story, how in your Army career, how kindness showed up and you learned the lesson of kindness from that space?
Yeah. I'll give you one. I was a senior first lieutenant, so I'd been in the Army about 4 years, and I was on a staff. So in this staff, we wrote the operations order. So we made the plans of everything that was going to happen over the next 6 months, year. And then we'd publish the plan as things came up. And so I had a boss who was a major, so a couple ranks above me. And he was one of those authoritarian, micromanaging, do as I tell you to do type of people. And his rule was, if I'm in the office, you're in the office. So if he's in the office at 8 o'clock at night, you were in the office until 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
You can imagine what the morale in that organization was. Not good. So we got a new major in, And the very first day, I'm sitting in my office and it's 5 o'clock in the evening. And I'm sitting there and I'm working on an order that isn't due for another 2 months. Just doing work. And he stuck his head around my door, and he said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, sir, I'm working on this order." And he said, "Is it due tomorrow morning?" And I said, "No, sir." And he said, "Then go home. Spend time with your family." Morale just went out the roof because he understood it. It's about kindness. It's about people. It's about taking care of people. And those are the type of things that make a difference. I would have followed that man anywhere. Guy before, I followed because I had to. He outranked me. He was my boss. This guy, I would have followed anywhere, and I still stay in contact with him.
That's beautiful. And in your words, what is kindness? Like, I sometimes think it's like a glue that connects us and builds us relationships. Like, we're talking to you from other side of the world right now. And there's kindness. Since we came on the call, there's knowingness and kindness that bonds us. And I wonder in your words, what kindness is.
Yeah, I think kindness, when we talk about people, is not putting yourself first, putting other people first, or at least equal to you, their needs, their desires, their wants. And then you come to an understanding. But I think, the problem, again, we go back to selfless or selfishness. And I think that, to be kind, you got to be, in my opinion, you got to be selfless, because you're putting somebody else's feelings, needs, desires ahead of your own. And now, you still got to live and you still got to do things. But in my opinion, the kindness piece is people who are truly kind are people who don't think of themselves first.
Beautifully said. Did you want to ask another question?
We were having a conversation with one of our other dear friends and colleagues the other day, and we were sort of I'm curious to see what your take on this is. We were expanding on the idea of work-life balance, and we were sort of debating, having a conversation around, is that even possible? Work-life, there's conflict there right away, right? Because it's either or. So we were like going, we need to come up with a new way to look at that, because if you we define it as work, there's different types of work, right? We start with the one that everyone as a child hates, and that's homework. There's that collective groan to be online as well, and so it's a misunderstanding. So it's like, the very term and definition, we need to replace the concept of work, perhaps even, because as we shift forward, one of the questions we were asking, which was is a really interesting one, it might get you to sort of go quiet and reflect on a little bit. And if the future of work isn't work, what is it?
Yeah.
How do we define it?
Yeah, well, I'm a firm believer, the old saying that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I've worked very few days in my life. I've enjoyed what I've done. But it always used to amaze me when a 4-star general, the highest ranking general in the Army, would get up on stage and try to tell us about work-life balance. And I was like, yeah, right. That's how you made 4-star general, right? Come on. I think, and I believe in work-life balance, but I think there's different levels of it. If you are one of those that work in a job where you have a regular work day, a regular work hours that you do, and you get to come home and get to spend every night with your wife and family, or husband and family, your spouse and your family, then by all means, good for you. And you should develop a good work life, divide up your time to where you can enjoy, if you're like me in the Army or first responders or whatever, where you don't have that say in when you're going to go and when you're coming back and how many hours you're going to work, then you got to define it a different way. And the way I always defined it was, look, I deploy for 9 months. I'm not coming home for 9 months. That's just the way it is. But or I go to the field for 30 days doing training exercises, whatever it was that took me away from my family, it just made me understand that the time I had with my family when I came back and I could spend time, then you got to spend it with the family, and you got to make that the priority. And I was lucky. My wife understood that. My wife was an Army nurse. She was in the Army for 8 years. So she understood that, there were times I didn't have a choice. I went where I was told. I did what I was told. And, but I always tried when I was at home to make myself available to her and to the kids as much as possible.
You just made me think of something really, really beautiful, actually, because one of our other speakers, Arnie Muller, he's talking about the decade of humanity, and I know that's close to your heart in terms of living a legacy versus just leaving one or even leading one.
Yes.
And one of the things we talked about was return on kindness. So this idea that you could take like the stakeholders or shareholders of any organization, whether it be a public body or a private corporation or even a charity, and sort of say, the return on investment, investment traditionally, the money people would think, that monetary terms, inputs, outputs, I want the output to be higher than the input. And we sort of said, it's taken the X value to that, X also denotes love, but, you'd start talking love to the money men or money women, they might just switch off to you. But if you talk about the kindness or the ROK and making that, if we can measure that, which we can, and that's what we've been exploring with our mentors and leaders that we're blessed to be involved with, is putting those metrics to that kindness. And as you were talking, I was going, oh my goodness, we could almost replace ROI, and that should be return on service. So if we go from an ROI to an ROS, that's service, because as the investor, you're providing a service, and the service you're giving is the resource that can be used and deployed and built upon to then amplify and return more, not only to yourself but to the others involved in that delivery of service. Right. And in essence, that is what any of our brothers and sisters around the world that say I'm prepared to defend and protect, and so they go into service, right? I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I've just put it down.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and you can measure it. I mean, you can measure it in the performance of people when you're kind to them, when you have empathy for what they are going through, and I think we fall into the trap that we believe that service is only the people who do service are soldiers or sailors or airmen or Marines or policemen or firemen or whatever. We can do service in every profession, every profession. And that is kind of, been much more involved in my church over the last couple of years since I retired from my day job, and my wife has been influential in getting me there and doing that. And one of the things that I'm figuring out is that I can do a lot of service now, probably just as much, not being a soldier, not being those kinds of things, just on a daily basis. Find somebody, you walk by somebody putting their groceries in the trunk of their car at the grocery store, ask if they need help. Simple things.
Right.
I saw Preet do that today, actually, with somebody that was coming down out of their house with the buggy.
Yeah.
Made it went out of her way to actually stop and just can I help you? She said, oh no, I'm okay. And, but just that that person would have like, oh wow, somebody saw me and
and you made that person's day. You made them happier by doing that. One of the things that I take pride on, and some people might not, but my wife and I are never late for anything. We are always that person that's 15 minutes early, and that's not good either. And she's trying to break me of that as well. But one day we were going down early, even earlier than normal, to get into our car to go somewhere. And I said, why are we leaving so early? And she said, we might run into somebody in the elevator or in the garage or in the lobby who just needs to talk to us today. And we need to have about 5 minutes set aside to where if they need to talk, we can stop and listen without any distraction, without worrying about if we're going to get where we need to be on time. And I thought, what a unbelievable.
Service.
That's
Yeah.
that's awesome. What a great thing to think about, how to be kinder in, in the coming days, and as we sort of reflect on how the year's been and what the new year ahead holds for us all, right? That's wonderful. It made me think of, God truly is in the good, literally, if you look at the word.
So, Oak, we are about to start a new year. We are doing this special series to bring kind leaders like yourself. And we would love you to conclude this conversation in a message that people can just really digest it and really bring it to their heart. How would you conclude this message of kindness? Please share.
Yeah, I think go about your life in that you aren't the most important person in this world. Go out and find somebody every day that you can help, that you can make a positive difference in. And I'm not talking about money. I mean, if you can donate money, good for you. But little things like helping people at the grocery market, stopping and talking to people and letting them talk to you and actually listen to them. Yeah, that's a whole nother, we could do a whole nother podcast on that. And just try to make a difference, make a positive difference in people's lives, because we need it out there. I mean, there are some people who are hurting. There's people both mentally, physically, monetarily. I mean, there's a lot of people, a lot of pain out there right now, and people need somebody to take an interest in making a positive difference in their life. And you'll be amazed. You'll see it right away. You'll see it in their face. You'll see it in their body gestures. You'll hear it in their voice when you've made a positive difference in their life.
And it doesn't take that much effort.
It just does not.
One small conscientious act of kindness, like your wife just pre-planned it already in her head that she's going to get there early in case something happens, and she gets there without any having a moment like anxiety of, oh, I'm going to be late before my community arrives. So she's already arriving there, time connecting to her higher self and the higher power, however someone choose to define it. So it's just a beautiful way of being, and I'm so grateful to have this moment with you, to share your, learn from you. Thank you so much for taking time out to speak to us today. What a beautiful, kind leader you are. Thank you for being you.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for your blessed service and continued service towards a kinder humanity, putting kind back into humanity. So if and just to finish off, Oak, if people want to reach out to you, and how's best to connect to you, sir?
Yeah, so I have a website, www.ltcoakmccullough.com, and then I'm on all the social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, X. I got a Facebook. So you can, not too many Oakland McCulloughs out there. I think you can find me on any of them. And then if somebody wants to have a Zoom conversation with me, they just got to reach out to me on one of my social media or my email address, which is on my website. And I'm happy to connect with people. And
you're an author as well, correct?
Yes, I wrote my first book in February 2021, Your Leadership Legacy, Becoming the Leader You Were Meant to Be. It's available on Amazon in hardcover, paperback, ebook, and Audible. And I did the reading on the Audible. The only other voice on Audible is my wife. She did the forward and about the author. Everything else is me. And I'm in the process of trying to write my second book.
Not trying, doing. You are.
Yeah.
As Joe just said. Bless you. Well, thank you so much. Have a great Christmas and New Year, and thank you so much.
You as well. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Bless you. Okay.